It sounds so official these days. I miss the old voice.
Well, that it's probably because of all the people who secretly recorded meetings without telling anyone. So now it just isn't loud. Welcome back, everyone. Season 3 of the Know Their Story. Man, you guys know our story. We'll tell anyone. The Know Their Story podcast. Welcome to my co-host, as always, Senior Dustin Sweet.
Howdy, Dave. Nice to see you.
Yeah, and nice to hear for our audio listeners. Got a very, very good episode coming up today. A special connection to someone we've talked to before. For the fans of the movie, someone you've heard of before, although he doesn't talk a whole ton. But today's guest was a combat medic in the U.S. Army, served in the 93rd and 24th Evacuation Hospital out of Long Binh in Vietnam, October of 1970 to November of 1971. Got his discharge on November 11th, Veterans Day. The reason I say that there's a connection is he grew up and worked with Dwayne Blower from season 1 and also in our documentary. Dwayne got drunk one night and volunteered for the draft, something he regretted when he sobered up. But then a little while later, Jim was also drafted into the war. They overlapped and then came back to Wisconsin to work together again. But welcome. And Jim, I'm totally regretting I didn't ask how to pronounce your last name. And so I'm going to see if I don't murder it. Let me try it first, and then everyone can laugh at me. But Jim Betthauser.
That's pretty close. Betthauser. Yep. Silent H. But I answered to just about everything.
Yeah. Well, my last name is Marlino. Growing up in the 80s, Dave Merlino, when a guy named Dan Marino was quarterback. Oh, yeah. I also answered Dan, even so hit it close and I'll answer. So thank you so much for joining us. Glad to have you on. And this Seattle Seahawk fan will go ahead and ignore the Green Bay Packer draft.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
There's been a lot of text messages back and forth between Dwayne and I over the years.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So, but Dustin, the ceremonial asker of the first question.
Oh man, we're gonna get it started just like that. All right. Well, Jim, ceremonially, the first question is always, how did you find yourself in the American Armed Forces?
Which I secretly kind of answered already, my fault, but we'll pretend I didn't do that.
Yeah, well, I was lucky to be a member of the first draft lottery. And I think it was the end of November, first part of December of 69. The number drawn, my birth date drawn was 90th. Thought, well, that's pretty high number, or pretty low number, really. But then my alphabet, my last name starting with a B, was drawn 26th. So I thought, well, I'm in good shape. Yeah, right. So anyway, I was drafted left Wisconsin on the 24th of March, 1970. Shortly after Dwayne became a movie star, matter of fact. So I mean, that's how I ended up in the Army.
Did you sign up for the medical corps, or did you just...
No, I was drafted, went through basic training and then no leave, and they shipped me right to Fort Sam Houston, Texas for combat medic training. And within a week there, I had orders for Vietnam. So then they had to teach me what they were going to use me for over there. So went through a 10-week course, went home with orders from Vietnam, and they all through training, they were telling us we had like a 3-second life expectancy, something like that, as a medic. And I thought, well, that's not real cool, but I had friends that got from basic training that actually he was a friend from Wisconsin as well. He was going to be a truck driver. He's going to Alaska to drive truck, and they gave him a 15-day leave after basic training. So we set up kind of a plan that, being we hadn't had any leave and we were only going to live for 3 seconds once we got there, we would take a little extra time going. So I was supposed to report to Oakland, I think, first right around the end of August, and we had it set up that we were going to take 29 days leave. I had a 15-day leave. We were going to take 29 days, just 1 day short of being a deserter, I guess. That's what everybody told us anyway. So I got there. This is the long story I was telling you about.
Yeah.
I got there on the 29th day, and I had Captain So-and-so as a, whatever he was, went into my first formation. He said, Betthauser, Private Betthauser, let me see you. So I stepped out and he goes, no, you're not the one I'm thinking about. Anyway, they restricted me to Oakland Army Base for 60 days or until I got manifested, busted back to PV1. And, no, he said, go and see Major so-and-so for a field grade Article 15. So I did that and I was busted. Swept the playgrounds a lot at Oakland. I was there for 8 days. I pulled KP 3 times. Everybody else went to Oakland A game and I couldn't go, of course. But anyway, make it long story short, then the next day, a friend of mine, there was 3 of us, Betthauser, Bridgers, and Barnett were close for 10 weeks, right?
You guys
As you can imagine, the way the Army goes with the alphabet, we were together no matter where we went. So Bennett comes in the 30th day. He got the Article 15, or he got the company commander that was a captain and got his Article 15. So he was only restricted. He got fined $29. I got fined $130, I think I said. Anyway, I've never found him again, but I did find Barnett in 1990. I was at the wall and Bridgers happened, I said Barnett, but Bridgers happened to be, his name's on the wall. So I thought, well, that was my going back 29 days late might have saved my life, because if I'd went, he went back in time. He went back on the 12th of September and he was killed about a month later. And so I probably would have been a medic in his platoon. Who knows?
Yeah,
But
it's hard to say how fate goes with
Yeah.
stuff like that. But so you show up late, they're yelling at you, and you're like, "What are you gonna do? Send me to Vietnam?" And they say,
Yeah.
"No, we're confining you here in America for 60 days."
Yeah.
It's like, oh,
well, that's what I
no.
said. What are they going to do? Send me to Nam? And
Yeah.
the paper says that's where I'm going. So
yeah, like
the sad part about that was I missed my uncle's funeral, because by the time I finally left Wisconsin, I had a plane ticket that had all these little date change things stapled onto it. And my mom, I was staying in Madison. My mom didn't know that I was there. She thought I was in Oakland waiting for my plane ride to Vietnam. My uncle died in the meantime. I couldn't come home to the funeral because I wasn't there. But
Oh, that's too bad.
that was a funny thing.
How'd you end up outside of Saigon?
I think I just lost my video. How do I?
oh, we can
there.
see you. Oh, there you go.
Okay.
It might be set to speaker view.
Yep.
If somebody else is talking, it might.
Well, actually, had you shown any signs of combat medic, or did they just like look around and point to you?
No.
Like, what was your feeling when they told you were going to be a medic? I mean,
thought-
I know if they told me that, I'd be like, I'm going to be in charge of saving people. Like,
Yeah, it kind of looked like that, because I mean, I was an equipment operator at the ammunition plant where Dwayne and I worked. I mean, well, Dwayne was a truck driver and he ended up as a gunner. So they pretty much, they told you where you were going to go. A lot of lot of medics came out of Wisconsin, from what I understand. I don't know why, if that's what they use for one of their criteria. I don't know. But I didn't know the first thing about being a medic.
I mean, I know if you were working on me, I'd say, man, I'm sure glad you were picked for your ability to save my gunshot wound because you grew up in the north.
Well, yeah, deer hunting and everything.
Yeah.
No, I don't know.
So did you, it's hard to say, did you like that? But I mean, is it something that you kind of grooved with or
I didn't have much choice, really. I mean, I wasn't going to go to Canada. I was going to try to do what they trained me to do.
yeah.
I mean, yeah.
So I'm going to jump ahead then because we haven't really gotten to getting to Vietnam yet. But along that line,
Well,
the first time as a medic when you're out in the field and you're having to put put your hands on and help someone, is that something that you remember that first time or what
No,
was that like?
that's another part of the story, that I never ended up in the field.
Okay, that's right, you went in the hospital.
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you the story of that now if you want.
Yeah, sure.
That's what we're here for.
I was at 90th replacement for 2 or 3 days, and then about 4:00, 4:45 on the afternoon formation, they told me I was going to the 93rd Evac hospital, and I thought, oh shit, where the hell's that? They sent me over to 222nd personnel, and they said, I thought I was going to get a ride to my unit. They said, oh, you can just walk up there. It's right up the hill. So the 93rd Evac was up the hill. Place was just Quonset huts, and it's a semi-mobile Army surgical hospital, kind of, sort of like a MASH, but it was a smash.
Right.
I couldn't process in because it was the end of the day, so they put me in the hooch that was for the transient guys, and the guard duty was in there. So sitting around chewing the fat, and the guy, everybody, where are you from and all that? And I said, I'm from Wisconsin. This one says, where? I said, Boston. And he goes, oh, really? He said, your name Betthauser? Said, do you know a Stubbs Betthauser? And I kind of chuckled. I said, well, yeah, I had a sister that they called her Stubbs in high school. Turns out that this guy dated her roommate in college in 1968. He was from down by Milwaukee, and he was a clerk. Well, the 93rd Evac was going to be, oh, that was another thing. They told you would be assigned 6 months out of your year's tour. 6 months would be in a hospital unit, 6 months in the field. My first was going to be in a hospital. So then he asked me if I could type, and I said, yeah, 85 words a minute. Well, the 93rd Evac was getting ready to shut down and go home. So they needed help typing up orders and closing the place. I said, all right. So they didn't use me as a corpsman at all there. So I was there from October, like I said, until March of 71. Then I transferred to the other 24th Evac that was also on post.
Wow.
And they didn't need any more corpsmen. And since I had been doing personnel work, they made me the Purple Hearts clerk. So,
wow.
So I never worked as a corpsman at all. And I was kind of glad about that, because after the first 6 months, I wasn't sure if I could do it's like riding a bike. They said it would all come back to you, but
right.
Yeah,
but those first couple of rides are always a little janky,
Right. I mean, every casualty that came into the hospital, I had to go and visit every night. The A&D report would come in, and there wasn't anything that I didn't see.
Yeah, I believe that.
Yeah,
That stick with you for a long time?
Yeah, quite a bit. Not too bad. I mean, I think probably I was drunk the first couple months, maybe.
Well, and I know, we've talked to Craig Jorgensen, who was shot in the field famously in front of CBS News cameras. But he said that the hospital to him was way scarier than being in combat. In combat, out in the field, you obviously do see it, but in a hospital, you see it every day, all day. And he'd look around and say, well, I've shot in the hip, but it's way better than some of these guys in here.
Yeah, there was some pretty messed up dudes.
Yeah. Although I was thinking about, have you seen Black Hawk Down?
No.
Well, Ewan McGregor's character in that is checking everyone in. He's checking in the guys who had just arrived, and they're like, how did you get this job? And he said, well, I haven't been out in the field because I have a very unique skill set that is very desirable to the Army. And he said, what's that? And he said, I can type.
Oh, really? Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I mean, who knows what would have happened if I couldn't type?
Yep.
Oh,
So again, thank your high school teachers.
exactly.
So
Mrs. Sorrell never liked me, but I sure liked her.
I was going through a lot of my dad's stuff. He passed away about 10 years ago, and I kind of, when we moved over the summer, and I was like, all right, time to clean out the closet. And I found a lot of his stuff from basic training, and part of it was typing. And I was looking at that, and I thought, well, no way Dad was a clerk. So he's like, I'm down to only like 10 mistakes per page. Letters home. So but I did skip ahead. I promised I'd come back. Arriving in country. Vietnam has a bit of a different climate than Wisconsin does. Yeah, stepping off the plane, was that like, what have I got in my, like, what's that like? I mean, you're going. You're obviously on the plane, but when does it become real to you?
I think about the time that we walked out the door. It's kind of, the heat just kind of envelopes you, and the smell of Nook Mom, and the heat was pretty evident. I was somewhere that wasn't real nice. Wasn't a vacation spot by any means.
And is that, it's hard to say you get used to that heat, but how do you acclimatize yourself to that? You're in a foreign country, obviously not under ideal travel circumstances. Like how does the human mind and body adapt for that?
I can't even remember what the next day was like. Like I said, we went to the 90th replacement, and plus,
time to hit the ground running.
Yeah.
Dustin, I cut you off earlier.
Yeah, I was just wondering what your day was like if you're in the as you were serving for the Purple Heart. How did you structure your day? Because I imagine there's paperwork, so you're running kind of behind what I'd call hospital time, which is like everybody being really concerned with saving lives and that timing. I feel like you're probably like a week behind that. So as people are recovering, you're trying to keep up with that paperwork, and it comes in from somebody else, and then you process it, right?
Yeah, the well, when I was at the 93rd, basically I just sat behind the desk and typed whatever they had to get typed to get out of there. So that was till March. Purple Heart's clerk was my main job at the 24th. So like I mentioned, the A&D report would come down every morning with a list of casualties that had come in the night before.
Okay.
Name, rank, serial number. If they had been, no, I guess the name, rank, serial number is about all that it had. So then I had to go and talk to each one. Most of them were all, I mean, they would be cleaned up
Sure.
as much as possible. If they had surgery, I wouldn't get to them until after they had that. I had to verify that their social security number, name, rank, social security number were all matched. If they had a Purple Heart or not in the past, so that they would get a cluster rather than a first Purple Heart. And then I would come back and type up orders, giving them the Purple Heart, and they went on to Washington or somewhere. Used to be headquarters, I guess, and from there to Washington. And then they would, I mean, I never gave them the actual medal or anything.
Right. No.
Yeah, it wasn't like today where you send an email and someone gets it 5 seconds later.
Right. Yeah, it probably would take a week or two before the paperwork got back. The only one that was quick was, I remember a warrant officer's chopper was shot down over VC Island, and when I saw him, he was on the burn ward, and that's the one that still sticks to me.
Yeah.
On one of them striker frames that they can turn every which way but loose. And his head was like swelled up a lot like that. Just one big mass of scars. And by the time I got back to my desk, probably 45 minutes, I had already gotten a message that so-and-so, you won't need to cut orders for him. He'll be awarded posthumously. So that one still sticks with me.
Yeah, and that's the thing about, we like I talked about with Craig saying the hospital, and you talk about nurses, and that's kind of what we're trying to say with this podcast too, is we talk to a lot of people and like, hey, would you like to be on the show? And they'll say, oh, well, I wasn't infantry. Like, well, yeah, but you were deployed. You obviously saw things. Nurses weren't in the field, as in Vietnam especially, but man, they saw things. And that's, all those stories should be told, and for our audience should be heard. But yeah, it is. And that's what we're trying to highlight here. It's not just infantry out in the field. Being deployed has, like you said, meeting that pilot for what, in the grand scheme of your life, 5 mines, 6 minutes, 7 minutes,
5 minutes at the most. Yeah.
and you still think about it 50 years later, 52 now. Like that is something that we want to get across to people, of what that is like. But yeah,
for a long time, the nurses didn't get the credit, even from soldiers that were there.
Right.
Of course, I think a lot of that wasn't the fact that they weren't respected by the soldiers that were there, as well as the soldier not wanting to talk about anything that was going on. I know after I moved to DC and then my first trip back to Wisconsin, there was a guy on there. We got talking, and he was coming home from Veterans Day, and he was talking about the nurses. He said, they didn't serve in Vietnam, or they didn't serve in battle. And I said, well, the way I look at it is, if there wasn't for those nurses, there'd be a lot more than 58,000 names on that wall. And the guy goes, yeah, I never thought of that. Duh.
well, and also if we're looking at it from that respect, depending on what unit you're in, like for the guys of Apache Troop, they saw battle sometimes multiple times a day because the helicopter would take them right to it.
Mm-hmm.
But say you're serving in a unit that would go out in the field for 30 days. You probably didn't see combat every day of that 30 days.
Right.
You may see it once or twice, or maybe not at all for a specific time for a walkabout. A nurse saw the aftermath of that combat every single day.
Yeah.
Every single day someone was coming in. And that, I think, does, and like you said, they're getting the respect now, but that can't be driven home more. To lighten it up a little, I just kind of thought of this. I saw a thing yesterday talking about for the audience, if they don't know what POG means people other than grunts. A lot of the infantry likes, if you're not out in the field, you're called a POG, a person other than grunt. Someone posted yesterday to everyone I referred to as a POG when I was in the military. I apologize. After watching Russia run out of food and gas 48 hours into an invasion of a country right next door to them.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a lot of logistics that go into making an army move.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and I mean, Vietnam was kind of strange. I mean, it was like they were having not strange, no front lines to speak of. I mean, they could drop a rocket anywhere. That 90th replacement where you go in when you first get in country, all through training, basic training and stuff, they had us dispersing. I don't know how many times we duck walked around the rifle range because it was raining and we all got together under our ponchos, but got to Vietnam and here they bring us out the same time every day in the same spot to tell us where we're going to go. So I was there but before we closed down in March, we took a patient in that they had dropped a rocket in the middle of the morning formation. We had a dispensary there, and one of our lab techs was walking to the shower, and he didn't get killed, but he got blown up pretty good. But the one guy they said that died, he was in country for 14 hours. He was from California. And I always said, can you imagine being the guy that has to go to his mother and tell she doesn't know for sure he's there yet, and they're telling her he's gone. But then the happy ending on that one is I met the guy. I thought he was dead, but I met him 2 years ago in DC. I think it was a corpsman that was driving the ambulance, hauling him to some kind of a chest injury, hauling him to the 24th Evac hospital. And the guy said, that's too far away. I can't, you'll die before we get there. I got to take you to the 93rd. So we were already closing down, but they brought him to the 93rd and they saved him. But I mean, the reason I brought that up is because no matter where you were, you had the chance. I mean, nobody was standing in front of you with a rifle aiming at you, but they could get you if they wanted you.
Especially if you go to the same spot every day at the same time. So,
how did rotating home work for you? Did your orders were cut and you went and showed up at the plane and went home, or
yeah? Went back to the 93. Orders were cut. Orders went back to the 90th replacement. And I think I was there for a day and got on a bus, went to Tan Son Nhut, got on a plane and headed for Oakland.
And Oakland, any how would I put it? Any problems coming through Oakland?
I didn't get spit at or anything. And a lot of my friends did. I don't know, maybe I just didn't say the right thing or something. I don't know, but I wasn't in uniform because my uncle lived in Walnut Creek and I went to his place for a cookout and of course changed clothes out of my uniform. And I think I flew home in civilian clothes, and that's why I didn't get any grief, because San Francisco airport, they would get on you.
Yeah, as we talk to more veterans, depending on if they flew through Oakland or if they flew through Texas, the greetings were vastly different.
Oh yes, yep.
So
yeah, I think that was the main reason, because I don't remember for sure if I put my uniform back on, but I don't think I did. And flew from there to Chicago and then Chicago to home.
So
it's what, 4 days out from Vietnam, you're back in the States?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I left Vietnam on the 10th and got to Oakland Actually, I think I got to Oakland probably the morning of the 11th, got discharged, and then it was within 24 hours I was home.
Wow. And we know the answer to this from having talked to different guys, but for our audience, how much wonderful kind of help and counseling and out processing did the U.S. Army give you when you got back?
None.
Thanks for your service.
Nothing. Yep. That's about it.
Yep. No, here's a number for someone you can talk to on Wisconsin when you get home. None of that.
I think I might have had a piece of paper. I'm a volunteer at the new National Army Museum here, and we're doing a special creating an artifact. There was 12 of us were chosen to make an artifact and a soldier's story pylon. So I was going through some of the stuff that I had brought back, and I think I might have ran across something that said to your parents, or maybe it was in a letter to home that I read, telling mom that she would be getting something from the Army saying I was okay and whatever. That I don't remember what it was.
So just
how long after you got home till you were going back to work?
I had, I think, like 90 days they had to hold my job for, I think is what it was. And I got home on probably like the 12th of November. I went back to work in February.
Nice.
89 days later.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know if I was even in good shape when I went back to work, but I had to get back there. That was probably when, I mean, I know now that probably I should have gone and talked to somebody about PTSD at that time. But like I told you, Dwayne and I hadn't talked about anything about our service for years.
Well, and you ended up working with Dwayne again when he got home, right?
Yeah, until like 1975, I think, is when the ammunition plants shut down. And then, of course, we drink and play ball and different things.
Sure.
Well, he played ball. I was the umpire and I drank.
That's
those are all important parts.
Those are equal parts to playing ball.
Yeah.
I played and coached when I was with Customs. We had a team. It was hard because we all worked shift work and we could never actually bring our full team to bear. So we just kind of were in it for the fun. But every year there's a federal law enforcement softball tournament for charity. Unfortunately, there are some agencies that take the spirit of competition a bit more seriously than others do.
Oh, yeah.
And bring in ringers. One agency, FBI, for their co-ed aspect, brought in the University of Arizona softball team. Yeah, and which is fine, but then they're also, I'll say it, they're complete dicks about it, like arguing the most minute of rules. It's like, dude, it's 27-2. Like, calm down. And of course, I have a fiery personality. And so I would start arguing with them. And I remember one tournament, I just hear, Dave, that's my wife. And she's like, sit down. And I look at the bench and my chief is sitting there just laughing. And he pats the bench right next to him. I go sit down and he's like, I need to figure out how she gets you to shut up so I can do that. But yeah, so we kind of took the tact that we had like a 3-hour break between games once. And so we all went and got all sauced up, hammered. Man, we never played ball better. So yeah, but we did beat the FBI the next year and they got all pissed off and left the tournament. It was great. So
was that out here?
That was in Seattle, for the Western Washington agencies. I was with Customs in Seattle. I have now left Seattle for greener pastures.
my wife was with the FBI out here for 42 years.
Well, I'm sure she was one of the nice ones.
She probably wasn't on the team. That's why I asked if you're here. think she was on the team. Maybe they played here.
Well, did she play softball for the University of Arizona?
No, that she
That's-
didn't.
Yeah. So
She
yeah.
did play softball.
How'd you meet your wife? Did you already know her when you went to Vietnam, or did you meet her after you came home?
No, the girl that I was dating when I went to Vietnam met me in Chicago when I came back. And we only dated for a little while after that. And then like 18 years later, I was going through a divorce in Wisconsin, and her aunt, she lived out here. Her aunt lived down the street from me, and I got a phone call from her. And then we got talking. That's when I found out she was out here. I had lost my hand, and I was going through a divorce, like I said, and I didn't have a job. I had just, after I got my hand hurt in an industrial accident, they sent me back to school, and I got an accounting and data processing degree. And she goes, well, why don't you come and visit me? So we got back together. And then we decided we were better friends than lovers, but I was already here. So then that's where I met my wife. We've been
Nice.
married, it'll be just about 30 years.
So it all a long winding journey, but
Yeah,
ended
kind
up
of.
in the right spot.
Yeah.
So you brought up an interesting point, and that was you knew Dwayne
Mhm.
before. Dwayne goes off to Vietnam, you go off to Vietnam, you come back. Obviously, you've got a connection with this other veteran that's closer than most. You both know you're in country, and still you didn't really talk about it.
Right.
You mentioned you didn't quite learn about it until Dwayne became a movie star.
Yeah, it was
In our
about 3
movie.
years ago or so.
So
It was about 2019, I think, is when I got the call from him. I know that I was on the screen porch, so it would have been in the summer or fall. Does that fall in about in the timeline when you guys were starting with your?
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah.
yeah, we've done a couple trips as we follow up year over year with them, which is why the movie's taken on. When we started the movie, I remember telling our entertainment attorney, I'm like, dude, we're gonna have this done in 6 months. No problem. No problem. We come from the scripted side. We've already got this done. And she just laughed at us.
Just laughed at us.
Laughed. She's like, documentaries take years. I'm like, nope, we've got it. We're going to break the wheel. We know what we're doing. A couple of years in, she's like, so how'd that wheel breaking go? Or did it roll over you like everyone else before you? But that is the thing, is we thought, the movie we have now is not the movie that we thought we were making when we started out. And Dwayne's actually one of, after we're done with Dwayne's interview, we turned off the camera and we just saw this, like you could see it. And unfortunately you can't record that because that never happens until after the interview was over. And we saw it a couple more times and we said, there's something to this, there's something going on here. And, guys would be like, oh God, that feels great to finally talk. I'm going to talk to my kids now. And we figured, it's really easy to say that day when you're high on this euphoria of having done this. I'm like, what, will that hold? Which is why we decided to shut down for a year and follow up a year later. And then we followed up again. And yes, there is a lot to talking. But 2019 was one of the follow-up trips that we had done when we were filming. Then we thought the movie was done, and then turned out there was some other stuff to film. Yeah, it's
When
been a
did
fun
you
ride.
have that screening? When was the screening in Seattle?
The screening in Seattle was 2 years ago now.
Before
Yeah, and
COVID.
then because then we did one down in San Clemente a little bit after that, and we thought we were going to do more. And we flew home from San Clemente to 2 weeks to Flatten the Curve 2 years ago. So we haven't done any more screenings.
One of my buddies is out and lives in Seattle.
Okay.
And he went to the one at Boeing.
Oh, nice.
Cool.
Yeah, he thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah,
That's
it
awesome.
was a fun day.
It was a really cool experience. That's such a lovely theater. It's such a fun place to be in.
So we were the ones in the back totally nervous because that was the first public showing we'd ever done.
Yeah.
Totally public. We did screen it for the veterans at the Apache Troop reunion. We're like, if anyone's going to see it first as these
Dwayne
guys.
and those guys were out there for that, right?
Yes, most of them did make it out for that. So we got to surprise the audience by introducing them as well. So yeah, it was a good weekend.
I was trying to surprise Dwayne by telling Ken to go over there and go up and say something that only he and I would know, and I can't remember what it was, but he didn't get to talk to him.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah, Dwayne's a big movie star now.
Yeah,
a lot of demands on his time.
I'm gonna ask him for his autograph. I'm going home in June, so I'll see him.
Let's see if we can get like a
His
screenshot
autograph.
picture or something. You can have him autograph his picture.
There you
So,
Jim, what parts? I have questions about rotating back to being a regular guy in like the last 50 years post Vietnam. How much of your, I mean, you said you went back to work at the munitions factory. Did clerical work come back to you in life? Did you end up using those skills again, or what?
Well, yeah, kind of, sort of. I went back there until 75. Like I said, I was an equipment operator. Then I got the job. I was a die cutter, and that was my accident was at the printing factory.
Okay.
I die cut my fingers off.
Ouch.
And so then I had to switch to doing something else. So I went to school for accounting and data processing. Like I said, I couldn't get a job back in Wisconsin. And I moved out here, and I was looking for a job in computers, but they were kind of hard to get a hold of. So I got into accounting, and I worked for I worked for a couple smaller ad agencies and junk mail businesses and stuff. And then I became a staff accountant at the National Electrical Manufacturers Association.
Cool.
Then I was the accounting manager there. And that's when I retired from there. So I suppose, the fact, not really clerical, but kind of sort of, it was office work anyway.
Well, having experience in office work, it's always so interesting to me when I made the jump from blue collar to white collar one time for a summer, and I worked at an ad agency, and I made a lot of social faux pas in the office life, just based on not understanding the dynamics of how office work works. It took me a while to catch up to that.
Yeah, my preference would have been to do some work outside. I mean, I didn't really like being inside it all the time, but
yeah, my wife, who is an accountant, I worked at the seaport for a while, and she would kind of laugh at me when I'd have to go out there. I was a supervisor out there, and it's pouring down rain in February in Seattle at night, and she's like, "Oh man, isn't that terrible?" I'm like, "Well, it's not my favorite thing, but I would rather be outside on a rainy day than stuck in your office on a sunny day."
yeah,
So
yeah.
and we agreed to disagree. She liked the roof over her head. So you said you worked for a munitions factory?
Yeah, in Wisconsin, we worked at a Badger Army ammunition plant.
All right, I want to, and stop me if I go wrong at any point here, or if I'm off base, but a lot of times we'll ask a question of, here you are deployed. One of our guys is like, I was in charge of a whole platoon of people, and suddenly I'm working an office job thinking, why is this important? Like in terms of rotating back in. For you, having worked in a field hospital and seeing what happens at war, and now you're on the other side of it making munitions for war. Was there like, was that a weird feeling for you? Did you ever kind of cross-reference those things, or?
No, I don't really think so. No, not that I can recall it.
All right, just wanted to see on that, but that was something that came into my mind.
Yeah, I can see why, like, I probably should have protested working there because what they were, actually, I worked in, I don't even remember what there's more maintenance than anything else, unloading supplies and different things like that. Maybe I would have felt different if I was in the actual process of making the
Sure.
bullets and ammunition.
And then actually I have one other question too. I'll switch gears to something happier. I saw a Facebook post at one point. You were talking to Dwayne, asking him to create a page for the museum that you're working on. Your museum has a project, and I'm going from memory of this post, but is the museum for anyone who served in the Army can create a page for themselves, or
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what that conversation was, but no. I can't remember what I was asking him about, but no, it's not a,
let me I'm seeing if I can bring it up. Maybe I am just crazy. Would not be the first time I've been accused of that.
That wouldn't even be the first time this week.
Yeah,
it's only Wednesday.
booking into Mardi Gras, not knowing it was Mardi Gras, might have been one of those crazy moments.
Did you guys flew there? Yeah.
Yeah,
We flew in and out of New Orleans. I was on a plane from Dallas, and then they do the whole, we're coming in, well, please buckle your safety belts, blah blah blah, and then everybody started shouting and screaming and being, starting a party, and I was like, what's I was busy grading papers. I was like, what's going on? And the guy next to me was like, yeah, it's about to be like a weekend long party, guy. And I was like,
Wow.
Yeah, we went up to Natchez, Mississippi. I had posted on the on our movie page, one of our very good friends that we met while filming this passed away from cancer.
Yeah, I saw that. That's
Julie Gilbert Price. So we went and attended her funeral, and it was very nice. I mean, would prefer not to have attended a funeral, but there's no flights directly into Natchez, so it's like, where are we going to go through? And we're like, oh, New Orleans is cool, let's fly through New Orleans. We know someone filming a movie down there, maybe we can, but they have to stay in a COVID bubble.
okay.
So we had joked like, hey, you need to send the production assistant out to go get you like some beignets or something. And so then we're like, oh, we'll just go through there and we'll joke around that we'll, sneak some through the fence or something. Got to be a hole in the fence. We're like, okay, we'll just go through there. Will it work out to see her? Probably not. So I went and I booked, and I was like, all right, we're going to go to Natchez. We're going to come back. We're going to have one night left. Like, why don't we just get a hotel near Bourbon Street? Like, whatever, we'll go do the thing for one night. And I was like, wow, these hotels are really expensive, and there's not many left. So I picked one, and that's when my wife's like, it's Mardi Gras, right? I'm like, I was today years old when I learned that. So I'm sorry, I'm not seeing that post. But we can take a second to talk. You are working, you said you work at a museum. Let's give a shout out for people on the East Coast, or what is it that you do now to spend your day?
My wife and I are both, I'm a docent at the new museum. It's only been open, we opened for the 20th of November of 20, no, we opened in November of 2020, Veterans Day.
Okay.
And right after the first part of December, we had to close.
And so what a time to be a new business in America.
Yeah, it was supposed to open in June of 2020. And then things eased up enough that by November, they thought they'd give it a shot. And like I said, we're open till December. Then opened again in I think June of 21. We opened up again, and we're open. Of course, now we can take our masks off because the State of the Union's over.
Yeah. And that's the Museum of the Army, or what's the museum?
That's the National Museum of the United States Army. Yeah.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah. So, and I mean, I was never a real history buff, so I learn every day. And I mean, I learned a lot from visitors that are come on there, or come in there, from most of them are Vietnam, few Korea, Vietnam, and stuff like that. But one old guy I met was 105 years old.
Wow.
He served 5 campaigns in the Army. His first one being on a horse. He was a horse soldier.
Wow.
He was amazing. Skinny, cute little guy in a wheelchair. And another guy that was in his he was, I think, 95, served with Patton in Europe. But it's cool. We have to do 9 hours a month to remain active. And my wife just retired 3 years ago, so I got her doing something. She's not a docent, but she works in welcome desk and different things.
Fun.
It's so cool to hear the stories, especially World War II vets. They're few and far between. But I even think back, to school, learning about the Tet Offensive and learning about Khe Sanh and reading about it. And that's the best I can do. And, you got to trust your sources. But then meeting someone like Ed Beale, who was there during the Tet Offensive and was one of the first people to walk into Khe Sanh after they had liberated it, broken the siege. And there's nothing that compares to, I read about history, these are people who have seen history, which is just such another reason to get out there and be sharing stories and listening.
Dwayne told me you worked with Craig, right?
I did. We were.
And that's how it all started.
Yeah, I before I joined Customs, I was a guard at the Federal Building downtown, and Craig would come through a lot because he worked in our evidence vault, and the evidence vault is separate from the office. So we would walk through for morning round. So I kind of met Craig that way. And then I got hired by Customs. And of course, he was one of the first to congratulate me. And then we just kind of kept up. Like, I became the head of our team that would bring evidence to the vault. So we kind of sit around and shoot the breeze. And then after my daughters were born, I took a job at the vault. One of the people is retiring, so I took her position, left being an officer because it was Monday through Friday, 8 to 4, and I had 2 brand new babies at home, and that sounded pretty good to me.
Yeah,
so we were partners for a couple of years until I realized, man, if I don't take this promotion to supervisor, someone I hate is going to take it, and I'll have to answer to them.
Okay,
So yeah, I spent a lot of time with Craig. He kind of helped nurture Dust and I when we started writing and mentored us. And when we made one of our short films, he's been in 2 of our short films, and then one of them we took on the festival circuit. And one of the last festivals for Happy Birthday Dad was held at Central Washington University, about 2 hours from Seattle. And so I told Dustin, like, you know what, I'll just take Craig to this. He's in the movie. Like, we were both super burnt out. We
had 2 because the one in Santa Fe was the same.
Yeah.
So I took Craig to that, and I took my sister to Santa Fe.
Yeah, because Dustin's in New Mexico. And so we're driving out there and we're kind of chatting. And it was funny to me because it showed me how burnt out I was from festivals. Because you check in, they're like, oh, here's everyone's got swag. And I'm like, I've got 10 t-shirts from festivals. But Craig was like, we can just have this. And they're like, yes, you're a filmmaker. He's like, and I can have a hat too. Yeah, you're a filmmaker. You're like, welcome, we welcome you. And so he, and then we had the question and answer, and he was loving it. And I was kind of like, yes, I have 10 t-shirts. So that was cool to see. But then as we're driving back home, Craig started telling me more stories from Vietnam. And I'd heard a lot of them because we were partners, but something was different that day. And I called up Dustin when we got home, and I was like, I know what we're doing next. And so that trip to Central Washington was the genesis of this movie, which became the genesis of this podcast, all because we were in a car for 2 hours. Cool. So yeah, it started with Craig, and then he started contacting guys from the unit. Dwayne was one of them. And they just happened to be these CBS guys. And then the CBS footage of when they got shot, when we first started it had only been viewed like 3,000 times. And then a couple major military pages picked it up and ran it, who had millions of followers, and suddenly I think it's up to 22 million views now or something.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah.
Well, Ken Burns used that, didn't he, in his
Yeah, we pooped a brick when Ken Burns was going to do this big Vietnam thing, because we know all those guys are alive, right? So we're like, okay, he's going to come in here and elbow us out. We're boned. And he never talked to any of them. Blew up. What?
Craig likes to say that he's been shot. That video has been used so many times as background footage. Like, you need to talk to Vietnam, they go take that footage. He's like, I've been shot as in the Army, in the Marines, and every single year of the country, and every single section of the country. Oh, someone's been shot. Let's pull up this footage. His daughter was in class one day, and they're like, here's some footage. And then there's her dad getting shot. They used that in the movie For the Boys with Bette Midler. He has not received any money from that. That all went straight to CBS. But yeah, he thinks that he should have about 1 million Purple Hearts now for the amount of times that footage has been run. And apparently we're the first people to ever sit down and say, hey, why don't you tell us your side of the story?
That reminds me of, this isn't Army, but my dad is a World War II veteran. He was a machine gunner in World War II. And my memories of growing up with him was Saturday nights, he'd be sitting in his chair watching Gunsmoke, and we would take bobby pins and pop the shrapnel out of his legs. It'd be working its way. Anyway, when he got out of the Marines, the doctor told him that he wouldn't live past 37 because of the shrapnel, that it would work its way to his heart. He turned 37 on the 11th of June and died on the 1st of July. And he had this Marine Corps book that was like about 1 inch thick. He was in the 1st Marine Division. And my mom, once we all got grown up, there were 6 of us, she showed us this picture and she said, that's your dad in the middle of that beach. It was like a half page spread. So many, many years later, my nephew was doing an article on Vietnam, and he got the American Heritage World History of World War II, and he opened it up, and that picture was on the 2 pages in the center of it. So a buddy of mine was out here who was a Marine, and I took him down to the Marine Corps Museum, and we were looking around there, and I told him that story. And I said, if I see Dad's picture in here, I'll die. And we walked in, and sure enough, there it was on the wall. So he was talking about, so many people have seen it.
Yeah.
That's so cool for that to be a generational thing. That's more and more. The more people we talk to, the more and more it comes out that it's really the armed services in America really is generational. It
Yeah.
really is.
And my dad never talked, well, I was 12 years old when he died, but he
Right.
never talked to, he never said one thing about his service. One of his buddies came once while he was still alive, and I'm sure they were talking about it, but all I never knew was that he was in the Marines. But and then, oh, that same picture shows that the Battle of Bloody Nose Ridge is what it was, and that's on Wikipedia.
Yeah.
That picture so you can find it. Google Battle of Bloody Nose Ridge on the Wikipedia. My dad's the guy in the middle of the picture.
Writing it down right now.
He's got his head turned, he's in his foxhole and he's turning looking at the camera.
You want a good smile?
Yeah. A lot of people say, nah, that's not him. How do you know you're just saying that? And I go, well, you don't know what he looked like, but I do, and that's him.
Yeah. It's like, I do know what my dad looks like.
Yeah.
I seen him like second person I ever saw, maybe fourth.
So, talking about your dad never talking about it, and how even though we were next to Dwayne for all those years, but didn't talk about it until 2019, part of the reason as we're trying to bring the story that we've learned out into the open, but also cross generation, our veterans in the movie like to say they want to be a 50-year head start for other veterans. Don't wait 50 years like we did. For you, like, do you have any advice to, maybe someone who's just getting out, or someone who just got back from deployment, or another Vietnam veteran? Do you have any advice, for them in terms of looking back at this? Or
I don't have a whole lot of, like I said, I think my MOS, that medical MOS that I had, this guy that I told you that I thought got killed, he works for the VA now, and he said that I probably had PTSD. I never talked to anybody about it. After I talked with him and, talking with Dwayne and all those guys, and I went and I talked to the psychiatrist. I mean, like I said, I was probably quote unquote under the weather for 2 or 3 months before I went back to work. And then pretty much under the weather ever since. My first marriage lasted like 15 years, and that probably was the cause of it. I don't know. I'm not a doctor, psychiatrist, but anyway, I went to a psychiatrist and they said can't remember what it's called now, but it's right under whatever is the level right under PTSD. I don't have nightmares and things like that. I have an occasional dream, but any of my feelings I've been able to handle. I mean, I quit drinking 30 some odd years ago, 84, so however many years that is. So I kind of dealt with it by myself without any help from anybody else.
Yeah.
I think I was a fortunate one to be able to do that. So I can't really give a whole lot of advice other than the fact that if you have any inclination that you have a problem, talk to somebody. You didn't ask to be in the war. I mean, in a way you did because you joined, but you were fighting for your country. So, I mean, you're owed a lot, and I've seen so many that are turned down just for different things. One of my best buddies that worked in the pre-op, I mean, he saw the guys coming off the chopper and he has PTSD really bad.
Yeah.
And his wife stuck with him throughout it all. It's a childhood sweetheart story. And he's managed to hold it off. But you got to, for the most part, you need somebody to help you with it. So open your mouth and, say something to somebody.
Yeah, it could be, anyone.
Yeah.
Wife, friend, doctor,
another veteran. I mean, veterans are probably talking to younger veterans are probably one of the best solutions. I mean, just in being at the museum, the reaction that we get from veterans of the current, and I usually work when I'm not roving. I'll work in the Vietnam gallery, and next door is the Changing World gallery.
Yeah.
And a lot of the soldiers of this, I can't shut that off. Soldiers of the current wars and skirmishes now, the feeling that they have toward most of us docents are Vietnam veterans.
Yeah.
And, the respect that they show us, I mean, they're feeling like we didn't get the respect when we came home. And so, I mean, they listen to us. I mean, if you can talk to a Vietnam vet, it's probably
Yep.
a good bet.
Well, I saw a thing that said the best thing an old soldier can teach a young soldier, and in this case, an old veteran can teach a young veteran, is how to become an old veteran.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, and it does come down to talk and all. From the other side of this, as someone who has had these talks with people, it's all you gotta do is listen. You don't have to solve anything. You don't have to come up with great ideas. Just let them tell their story. Be like, cool. I'm super glad I got to learn that. And so, Dustin, for you,
Jim, thanks so much for hanging out with us today.
Yeah, it was good to meet you guys.
Yeah, you too.
yeah, we've seen you on our Facebook page a lot, and so
Yeah.
it's
It's nice to put a face to your name.
yep, and great to hear your story. For our audience, thank you for being with us today. Give us a like wherever you're listening to this, Apple, Spotify, Podbean. Give us a like, a follow, tell your friends. My joke every week, tell your enemies. I don't care as long as they listen. So, but thank you so much.
Okay.
I'm gonna go ahead and do my Zoom face as I look for the end recording button. Dustin, your last chance for a pithy joke.
I don't have any left.
Good, because I was going to cut you off when I edit this just for a flimsy. But thank you so much. Yep. Go ahead and pretend that we stopped recording there, and I'll use our snip tool on the editing. But Jim, if you're down for it, if you'd like to do that thing for the movie,
Okay.
just hi, I'm Jim Betthauser. I served in the U.S. Army. You can say the dates you served, however the movie starts.
Change the view out so that he's big screen so we can.
I'm sorry.
I record in HD. So
okay.
Go ahead, Jim.
Okay, I'm Jim Betthauser, originally from Boston, Wisconsin. I'm living in Alexandria, Virginia now. I served in the United States Army as a combat medic slash personnel clerk at the 93rd Evac and 24th Evac hospitals on Long Bend from October of 70 to November of 71.
Perfect. I'm just going to let this run for a second. Dustin will get mad at me for cutting it off too soon.
I was going to ask, where did you guys, what's the connection between you guys, since one lives way down here and one lives way up here?
I went to college at an art school in Seattle, and they
hold on. I'm going to stop recording before we tell this story.
So you were still